All right, so welcome. I'm Amanda. I'm a library assistant here at Middleton Public Library. And tonight we are doing Reading with Libby, like I said. So this is a new app from Overdrive. And if you've seen anything that we've put out in the recent last week or two, Overdrive, the app, if you ever used it previously, is no longer in the App Store. So if you do have it on a device, it does still work. But if for some reason you lose the app on your phone, sometimes it happens when you update to new software, and a lot of your apps will log out from accounts and then you have to log back in. If that were to happen, you would not be able to get Overdrive in the store anymore. The one that replaces it is Libby. So we are going over Libby here today. And you can get this from any app store. Android devices is the Google Play Store. The Apple devices would be the Apple's App Store. And as it stands, it is not yet in the Amazon App Store. Hopefully this is going to be changing since they are kind of phasing out Overdrive. And if you do have a Kindle Fire, I do have a workaround that I will show you in a way that you could use Libby as everyone else kind of normally does. It's just through a web browser. But so we start off by downloading that. And this is what the Libby icon would look like on your device. The person they have on there is named Libby. She has a little bookmark for a little ponytail. She's kind of cute. So when you first open up the app, and it gives you a welcome message here, and it asks you if you have a library card. So you would say yes. If you don't have a library card, I suggest that you either log on our website online and request a card that way, or come into the library. But most of you, I'm sure, already have one. Then it's going to want to search for your library. You can do the middle option and type in the name of our library. I find it easiest to do the Guess My Library. And then you just want to make sure that the one that chooses says it's in the South Central Library System. And then we have Middleton Public Library. And then you would select, this is my library. If for some reason it selects a different one, you can do no keep looking, and hopefully it should get it. It does use the GPS on your device or IP address from your computer to try and figure that out. So if you do have that turned off on your devices, that's when that part wouldn't work and you'd have to type it in. The next question it asks is mainly if you use Kindles, just because if you are wanting to read on a Kindle, that is a certain format that you have to search for in Libby to download. So it's just making sure, are you doing that? Or are you just going to be reading within the app? I myself read within the app most of the time. I find it the most convenient having everything in one place. But if you do have like an older Kindle Paperwhite, you can still check out books here and then they send it to your Kindle through Amazon. So there's that way as well for a little bit of a workaround with Kindles. But usually I'd say just click I'll mostly read in Libby. And then you want to sign in with your library card. Then you will have this page that shows up. So you want to select your library from the list. Ours is the South Central Library System, and it is a link cat library. So that just is the kind of catalog we use, and there are some other South Central systems out there. So just make sure that it is that one, and then you can type in your card number. Then you would click sign in. I don't know what that mark is. That just popped up there. So when you first are logged in into Libby, it starts off in your digital library. So this is going to give you some popular collections that are curated by the librarians that work at Overdrive. And you can just scroll through them. The day that I took the screenshot, they had lucky day items, which is like our serendipity that we have here at the library. And these are available, but you can't recheck them out again. Like there's no wait list for it, and you just have to, it goes back when you're done. And if it's still there, you can go check it out again. But there's a lot of fun lists that are on there, so I would definitely check that out. And this is also where you have some of the subjects or collections up at the top. They do have the subject headings that you can click on to see those, as well as anything that is available now instead of having a wait list. So that is really nice. If you were to click on, don't know what that little line there that's distracting me. Must be this edit. Yeah, I think I might have accidentally hit that. So I'm sorry, that's distracting me. So once you hit subjects, this is kind of an example. So it tells you how many fiction books there are, romance, nonfiction, and the list goes on. So that's a way that you can kind of peruse the different titles. If I were to click on fiction, this is the list now, and it's telling me how many books and how many audiobooks. And I can always refine the results. If I do that, I can do format, the language, audience, and the availability is whether or not there's a wait list. So you could make that a little smaller if you needed to. And then there's also the search preferences, which is on the left side. And this here is something that is similar to the refinement, but it's applying it to every single search you're going to do from here on out. So if you ever do switch any of that around, especially the availability, do make sure you switch it back. If you switch it to only available now and say apply preferences, and 2 weeks later you try to find a certain title for your book club that you're in and it's not finding it, it's because the preference is set to available now. And it could be that that book is a popular book and there's a wait list, so it doesn't show up until you change it to the everything availability. So a few things like that in those preferences is good to pay attention to. Make sure if you change anything to just change it back. Better to have default settings than not. When you are on that homepage for the library, I can go back a few. Well, anywhere where you have the buttons down at the bottom, the magnifying glass down at the bottom, that is your search for looking for books. So when you tap on that, your search bar will pop up at the top. And here you can use keyword stuff as what it's going to default as. So you can put in an author's name, a title, any kind of subject. If you wanted to do a more advanced search, it's not popping up here, but there's a little button that says advanced when I'm in a different screen. I want to quickly just kind of go over what it looks like to put something on hold and check it out. And then I am going to show you live on my computer just what the what Libby looks like when you're using it, and then also the website for it as well. So if you're on a desktop, and you can get to your stuff there too. So when you're looking at a book, when you are going through the records, you just click on the image and it brings up a summary of the book. And underneath the picture is always your place to hold book or borrow if it's available. So that is what you would click on to place a hold. When you're going through your records in your results, this is what the borrow looks like, and this is what place a hold looks like. So again, you click on the cover or the title of the book to then look at the summary of the book. You can just right away click the borrow or hold button from this page as well, instead of the summary page. Kind of depends if you want to look more into the book. But here's an example when you scroll down, kind of some information that they're giving you. They tell you what subjects it pops up in, and you can even read a sample. So that would be the benefit of going into that summary too. When you scroll further down, it'll also tell you if the book is available in a different format. So if you were looking at an ebook, but you actually wanted audiobook, it should tell you down at the bottom whether or not we have it in audiobook. When you hit the borrow button or the hold button, you would just click on the big button there and then pay attention to how many days it's telling you that you're getting it for. It has a little underline underneath 21 days. So that means that you can tap there or click on that and you can change it. So your default, when you've never used your Libby account before, is probably going to be set to 7 days. So you want to make sure that you do change that before you check out, because you can't change it after it's checked out. And once you do hit borrow, it does start a little download icon here to tell you how far it is to download. Sometimes it goes really quick if you have fast internet. And then when it's done, it should have a check mark. And then you also have this manage notification section. And that is an important part of whether or not you want to return the book early. That's where you would click on. So maybe you just accidentally checked out something you didn't want to. When I click on go to shelf, which is, oh, it's further down. If you would keep scrolling, it would go to shelf. So your shelf is your loans, your holds, and your tags. So that would be the stack of books down at the bottom. So you have search, your library. So this is where you go to look for the books. And then your shelf is the stack of books. And then the clock is your activity or your history. So what you've checked out in the past just keeps a running list of everything for you, which is really nice. So when you go into loans, it shows you what is currently checked out, and it can split it up at the top by books or magazines. What's due next, author, title, things like that. You can, this is where you would go to open up each item to start reading it. And then the manage loan is where you would go to return early. Tells you how long you have. So this one was 21 days. Hillbilly Elegy was 4 days. And if I click on holds, then it tells me approximately how long it thinks that I'm still going to wait. So it was quite a while ago that I took this screenshot because actually today I got a notification that said Maid was ready to check out. So that is now in my checked out, and you'll see that in a second. So I don't know if it was quite 20 weeks that I actually waited, but it was still a long time. The same thing here, under manage hold, this is where you can cancel your hold, and you can also change the email address that you're getting your notifications. So whenever you have a hold ready, it will send you an email saying that it's ready for you to check out. So you can change that email at any time if you needed to update and you got a new email address. So there's an example of suspend, cancel. You could share the title. The great thing about the suspend hold, so this is just like our physical books here in the library. You can suspend it. It'll keep your place in line. It just keeps skipping you until you activate it. So if you have too many items that you have in your hold list, suspending is nice to do. So we also have the menu button down at the bottom. So this is where you're going to get all of your extra stuff. So any notifications that Overdrive or Libby will give you would show up there. It shows you how many libraries you have right now added. You can have more than one card in here. So if you do frequent other libraries in a different system somewhere else, I know that happens a lot when people go live down south for the winter and then come back up north for the rest of the year. So they have two different libraries that they attend. So you can have both of those logged in at the same time. If you ever need some help, troubleshooting or anything, there's the help and support section here. There's a survey. And then also there's some new explanations on settings. So this would be, you know, whether or not you're reading in Kindle or Libby, or what's another good one? Oh, if you want to download a book using data, or if you only want it to be on Wi-Fi. So that's where those settings would be. So that's your menu button down at the bottom with the little Libby. You can return early or renew books, again, in that manage, loan, or hold. If you're able to renew it, it will tell you, I think that's 3 days before the renewal or before the due date is when it'll start telling you whether or not you can renew it. And here's just an example of when you're reading an ebook. You do have a slide bar down at the bottom to kind of go back and forth. If you tap on where it says chapters here, that is where you're going to get the table of contents for the book. And then up at the top, you have your settings for font. So you can change the kind of font or the color or the size. And then you also have the magnifying glass to zoom in even more if you need to. So there's the example of the chapters on the magnifying, oh wait, no, magnifying glass is search. Sorry. Zoom is just when you're on a device, it would just be the pinch out and pinch in. Oh, it's been a long day. So the magnifying glass is the search. So you can search anything within the book. Maybe you're looking for a section that mentions some word. You'll be able to find it that way. And then the one in the corner that looked like a file box, that button was your recent places. So it just tells you on what date you read until however far. So I know that can be helpful if you're trying to keep track of pages read per day. For the appearance, this is where your scale for text would go, and it will show you in real time what it looks like. So when you start changing that, same thing with the lighting. So if you're outside, the bright one is good. Some people like the sepia, so it looks like the off-white, like paperback color of paper. And then the dark mode is where it inverts everything, and it's a black background with white writing. It's very nice to use when you're in a pitch dark room, like if you're in bed reading at night, because there's less blue light that is getting to your face and into your eyes. And I use it, and it's really helpful to be able to fall asleep after I'm done reading. Then there's also just the font. And then you also can bookmark pages, and I'll show you how to do that here too. This is just an example of what an audiobook would look like. So you have a play button, and you have another slider. Looks like we have somebody waiting to get in. So this example of an audiobook, if I wanted to get the chapters, I could click where it says chapters. And then there's also up at the top, there's a timer mode. So if you listen to audiobooks when you're falling asleep, you can set the timer to be, only read for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And then in your history, it should show you where, how far you got, so you can kind of plan what you remember before you fell asleep. There's also a way that you can jump around here with the chapters and bookmarks with the menu. So as we look at it live now, some key points to remember is that everything from browsing and checking out to downloading and then reading and listening is done within the app. This obviously is, unless you are using a Kindle to send it to your Kindle, then you can check out in the app and then you can send a Kindle. The app has 2 sections, your library and your shelf. Those are basically the 2 main things. And always check your default loan period the first time you check out an item. Otherwise, you're only going to have 7 days. And the help site is just help.libbyapp.com. And there are really great articles. They, in the last few years, have really upped the ante on just having great help articles on their website to get you through. And then also just a quick plug for myself. So the next classes that we have going on is January 26th. We have the Streaming Free with Hoopla, which is another database for books, audiobooks, music, TV, and movies. So come visit me on Zoom that night. And then in February, we also have a Digital Public Library of America tour. So that's an online library that's accessible to everybody for free that we're going to take a look at. And then the second one in February is going to be an A to Z database workshop. So just learning how to use the database that we have online. So I'm going to quick unshare and reshare. And we're going to look at that live here. Let's see. Sure, I have that pulled up. Okay. So if you go to the website libbyapp.com, this is going to look pretty much like what the app looks like on a device. So you have your your buttons down here at the bottom. You have your search, library, the menu button, your shelf, and your reading history or hold history. Keeps track of both. So if you have a Kindle Fire, this is what you would need to use as a workaround if you wanted to actually work within Libby. So once you go to this website, then it would ask you to go through the sign-in process, like we showed in the beginning, and then you're going to be signed into your items. So here is kind of an example of what they have curated right now. So they have their lucky day up at the top. They have some different guides here for kids, teens, and more. And then magazines is a very large thing that was added within the last 6 months. And they have an extreme amount of magazines. So they have that here on their homepage as well. There's a list of best books of 2021. And as you scroll, it just kind of keeps generating more and more lists. So that is a fun way to find a book. If I wanted to check out my shelf, click on shelf, and here I told you I did check out Made earlier today. So that is there. And if I click on loans, now I have 3 instead of 2 checked out. I don't know how far I am. It's almost due. I've been reading this book for the last 2 weeks or so. Very good book if you've ever read the library book, if you're interested in just the lives of libraries and librarians and all that. It's very interesting. It's mostly about the Central Library in Los Angeles, but almost done with that one. I do have a cookbook in here, so if you ever wanted to see what cooking looks like online here. And this is what it looks like when I open it here, because it's kind of smushed. So ignore the part that it's all smushed. It would look a lot nicer if I was on a device here, but they do have these little quick links to jump around to different recipes. And this would be the same if this was a book that had chapters. So each chapter would be underlined so I could jump around that way. Or I can just click and drag with this down at the bottom. So like I said, your font stuff, as you play with it, it'll make it bigger. If you want accessibility sizes, that will make the font be even bigger. If you need something that is similar to like large print, and then there's the different stuff there. I know a lot of the screenshots that I have in my handout, I think are black because all of my stuff is always in the dark mode. So that is in some of the photos in your stuff. Then there also is these different fonts. So as you change it, it'll change up at the top and show you. One nice thing, which not everybody enjoys this font if they need it, but there is a dyslexic font that's available for those that it might help. I know I've run into some people who don't like it, who are dyslexic, that it just sits a little weird with them and they don't like it, and that's fine. But it can be really helpful. And I like that Libby has that extra added feature to it as well for those who need it. All right, so to go back at any time, there is a back button in the left corner. So you can always get out of the book. And then if we wanted to go back to my shelf, I also then, the back button just turns into a back to shelf. And I can look at my holds. So I've got a few waiting there, and there is this little card here. If I click on it, it'll tell me approximately maybe how long. So I'm 10th in line, there's 5 copies in use, 17 people waiting in total, and 3 people waiting per copy. So it's just trying to give you as much information as possible. but it can never give you the exact time because some people might check it out and then never read it, and it sits there for the 21 days and never gets returned until the due date is up, or others might pass it and not even check it out. So the wait time can sometimes vary, but it's a good guess. If I go back, there's also something called tags. So this is a way that you can categorize your books and audiobooks. So it's kind of like a wish list, or you can make tags as like, I already read that book, or books I want to read. So I made a tag that it looks like I made an icon here. So if I click on this, this shows just what I've borrowed in Libby. If I wanted to change this list a little bit, there's this action button in the top right corner, and I can rename this. And I can type words, or oops, I'll just do wish list, even though it's not a wish list. But so you could just do wish list, and then if you wanted to do an icon, you could just do an icon. Done. So now it's changed. It's no longer an icon, it's wish list. So I'm going to go ahead and do a search for you and show you what that's like. Let's do. So I started typing John, and the first few I get are Grisham, Sanford, Flanagan. So say I wanted Sanford. So instead of continuing to type, I can just click on John Sanford and it's going to give me everything. So it says there's 60 books, which would be ebooks, and 52 audiobooks. And what is nice is that it tells you what number the book is in the series. So if you are looking to start something for a series, that helps inform you. Let's just click on this one. So if I wanted to look at the summary, I click on the picture, and then I get to see the summary here. I could read a sample. And it does tell me this is also available as an audiobook, which is good to know. And then it also can tell me others in that same series. And it's giving them to me in order. So if I wanted to borrow, I hit borrow. Make sure that your default is what you want it to be. It can be 7, 14, or 21. Most of the time, I'd say just do 21, unless you are someone who reads books very quickly and goes through multiple a week. I do not do that, as I have a 4-year-old, so I barely have time to read. So you would click borrow for 21 days, and then it gives me some options. I can open the book right away. I can keep looking for books, or I can go to shelf. If I want to open it right away, ask me, okay, which way are you reading? And it asks me about Kindle, because I did in the past read a lot in a Kindle app, but we're just going to read in this app, and it pops up, and we're ready to go. And then I did want to show you, so let's get to somewhere. Okay, so say I stopped here and there was just something really interesting on this page. Maybe I'm in a book club or reading this book. I can click on this bookmark here, and that is going to bookmark everything for me. And then if I go to that little file box, that appears up in the corner, I can see all the lists of the bookmarks that I have. So it says it's today, it's page 130. And if I would click there, it would go right to the bookmark. So that's how you'd make a bookmark. And these different features do disappear. So just make sure if you ever need them to come back, you tap in the middle of the screen, and that's where your back button is going to pop up as well. Let's see, something else I was going to show you. Oh, how to take something. Okay. So let's go back to our results. Okay, so say I saw I don't know, this book. Maybe I don't want to read it right now, but I do later. So I can hit tag. And then I can choose the tag. So I only have one tag right now. So I could just say wish list. Now it tags it in my wish list. Or if I wanted to make a new tag, I can just hit new tag and then it would create a new one for me right away. That's how you create the tag. If I go back now to shelf and then tags, when I click on the wish list, I can see them. And then if I click on it, it'll bring me right to that item where I can then check it out right away. All right. Let's see, it's a little after 7. Show you. Oh, okay. When you're in, see the shelf. So you always have this action button on different pages. Depending on the page that you're on, this action button is going to change. So right now, this is giving you the option to synchronize your shelf. So that means if you're using multiple devices to read, maybe you read on a tablet and sometimes you open it up on your phone. If you're sitting like at the doctor's office waiting, you don't have your iPad with you and you just need something to look at for a few minutes. It'll synchronize it to go to the furthest place that you've read on whichever device it is. Then you can also suspend all holds that way when you're here on the shelf page, or you can choose the read books with Libby or Kindle. If I'm on holds, this action button, like I said, will change a little bit. Suspend all holds, synchronize shelf. So it only gives you those 2 options. And then the last thing would be this history button. So this shows me my timeline of what I've checked out, what I've put on hold, and what has been returned. So you can see when something returns. If you missed it and you're like, oh, I was going to get to that and I didn't, then you can always go back and then try to put it back on hold again if you need to. The other place that you could go, so other than using Libby, is on a web browser. You can go to the website for Overdrive. It's just wplc.overdrive.com. And it takes you here. Our consortium that we use for all of Wisconsin is the Wisconsin Digital Library. And then you do have in the right corner, there'll be a sign in or sign out if you're already signed in button to click on. And then you go through the same process of putting in the South Central Library System and then your library card number. And here you have access to the same stuff. So if I go to loans, I'm going to see what we just checked out. Here, when you're in the web browser, it's going to give you little buttons if you want to read it in Kindle. That's how you would send it to Kindle. Or if you want to read it in browser. Some of these do have EPUB things that you can download. That usually only shows up if you're accessing it from a web browser and not the Libby app. So if that's something that you wanted to use, you would have to make sure that you're accessing it in a different way. I don't know if that makes it more confusing, but you can do the same stuff here. You can go into, so your shelf, or you can get to it here too, goes to loans, holds, the wish list. So this is different than the one in Libby. If you had already created some wish lists, they should have, as of, I think it was right before Christmas, there was an update to Libby, and wish lists were supposed to sync between when you access it here and the app. I know that that has been kind of, I mean, it's a great update, but it's not working for everybody. Like the wish lists aren't appearing for everybody. So that is something that is being worked on. And I know there are some help articles out there about it as well. So if you do run into that, you can always do a help ticket to us, and then that's something that we can bring to Overdrive. And if you get confused, Overdrive is the main company, and they own the Libby app. So that's what they created. And so I kind of use Libby and Overdrive kind of interchangeable because they're the same company. Let's see. Right now, recommendations is only on the website here, not in Libby. So if there's ever a book that you want recommended for purchase, this is where you would go, is in the recommendation section. And once you have requested some, if they get put in the collection, it will tell you here if it got put in the collection. So a few of them that I have gotten in, so that's nice. But again, your search bar, it all looks very similar. So we have about 15 minutes, and you are welcome to ask any questions that you might have if you've been having any issues and been using Libby already, or if you wanted me to go back and show you something we were looking at, I can do that too. Otherwise, that is about everything to show you. I think the fun part now is going out and finding some books and using this. One added thing is that you can use your audiobook. So when you're using Libby on like a smartphone, if you are in a car that your phone can connect to with Bluetooth, or if you plug it in, you can play those audiobooks, and it's going to go right through your speakers in your car. So that is a really fun feature that I know a lot of people use, because audiobooks are very popular in cars. And new cars today aren't made with CD players anymore. So that is something that a lot of people run into when they're used to doing their audiobooks. So it's just as simple as you have Libby open, and then you either connect with Bluetooth or you plug it in with your cord and you hit play, and it'll start playing through your speakers. That, I think, is the last thing. I forgot about that. But again, if you had any questions, you're welcome to unmute yourself, put anything in the chat. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming. And I hope to see you in a future class. Again, that was Hoopla is our next one. That's on the 26th. And you can find all of our stuff on our website. If you go to events and then events for adults or technology classes. Actually, yeah, why don't we just go to technology classes? That's where you can find the class, and then our Zoom link. And then also if you go to the adult section, this is where all of our past programming has been put up. So both any of the speakers that we have, those also get recorded and put up here. And then here are some of my past classes. These were the December and November ones. So take a look and have fun. Let's stop sharing here. Seems like we don't have any questions, so I'm gonna go ahead and end the class here. Have fun reading some ebooks.